What's up? I'm Smokin Jones, and I guess it's time that I tell you a little bit about myself and where I came from, how I got in this industry, and what it is that I do. Some people will know, some people won't know, but I've been in this game a long time that we call Chicago house and dance music. I'm doing this video directly to you before the documentary comes out. There is a documentary that will be coming out that will be discussing me and a lot of other prominent DJs that are in Chicago, doing their thing. Um, so I'm just want to get this out to you guys right now. I'm a little nervous about it because I never did my own video, if you will, about myself. You know, um, I'll play a little music in the background. Hopefully, it doesn't interrupt the video too much. And this is one of my tracks that's called "Call on Me." Um, that I'm very proud of. That I like. It's a real mellow track, but it'll help me to relax to talk to you guys. So hopefully, you guys it won't interrupt you too much. But let's talk about Smokin Jones. Let me turn this down. I know the whole YouTube industry, man, is not so much into day to day, but I need people to understand who I am and where I came from, from a different perspective than what you're going to get from a documentary. A documentary, of course, is going to be a lot more well put together and stuff of that nature, but I think this is a good one on one. I was born on the south side of Chicago, actually in the Park Manor area. I grew up on 69th and Prairie. I went to St. Calabanis Grammar School. I was a Catholic school kid. Um, and in that, I came up in a broken home. I was raised by my great aunt, and I was very grateful to her, for the things that she did for me, man. She was just like a mom to me. My father and mother were in and out of my life at that time. So, um, that's what happens in broken homes. It's a painful thing to talk about, but you know, here I am today, and I'm doing okay. Still have a lot of scars from it that I carry, but I mean, that's why I got into music. Music was one of the main reasons why I got into this whole thing. I was actually introduced to house music through a friend of mine named Jeff Green. We used to have a station here. I think it was 102.7, the OGCI, which was WBMX, the WBMX station. It was a 107.5. I think it was 107.5, maybe. It's been a while, but that's where I heard for the first time Kenny Jam and Jason, um, Farley Funk and Keith, Mickey Oliver, Ralphie Rosario, and many others. Scott Smoking Seals. They formed what they were called the Hot Mix Five. And Jeff called me one day and said, "Are you listening to the mixes?" I said, "What are the mixes? I never heard of the mixes." Um, and from that day, when I tuned in, I fell in love with Chicago house music. I started frequenting a lot of parties. One in particular was we had a school on the south side on 111th off of King Drive in Chicago called Mendel Catholic High School. It's now called Southside Prep today. But it was an all male, all boy, Catholic school. And it had some of the hottest teen parties, I mean, at that time. And that's the only place you could go in the city where gangbangers and preppies and um, people of all walks of life, man, could go in and party, and when you didn't have to worry about fighting each other or crime went down. Kurt Townsend was one of the founders of that. My partner in crime right now, Steve Poindexter. Um, it was a lot. Got another promoter at the time, John Hunt. It was a lot of different crews at that time. You had Gucci, you had Park Avenue, you had the Bad Boys. I'm sure if you guys follow house music, you know who Mike Dunn is. He was part of the Bad Boys. Steve Poindexter. A lot of different guys, man. I can't think of off the top of my head, but I respected those guys so much in the game, and they helped to encourage me and influence me to get out there and not only dance to the music, which is a whole nother story. Before I even got into the music, I was in the dance crew called SUD, Straight Up and Down, and that consisted of me and a couple of my buddies back then. And we would go to the parties and we would just dance, and get in dance competitions and stuff like that. And then I got encouraged to start DJing. Well, DJing was very funny. It was a very funny situation. When I initially got into it, I didn't have a whole lot of stuff, and my parents really didn't take me that seriously. And my great aunt, of course, she didn't understand the whole thing of just, playing records. So, I would get 45s and, albums and EPs and stuff like that from a friend of the family who owned a record shop, Mr. and Miss Smith. They owned a record shop on the south side called Smith's Records. And I would get those and I would play them, on the what I call the old coffin, the old one piece stereo system that you got from Sears. It had the cabinet speakers built in and, everything set down in the coffin and you played your records and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I did my little household parties. And I would just, at the time, it was a little arm that you could bring around and stack records, and the little 45s would drop down and I would put them in the order I wanted them played. And for whatever reason, it worked out. And then, of course, I graduated to turntables, and my father gave me a realistic, at that time Radio Shack was doing a lot of stuff, so I got a realistic mixer from Radio Shack. I got a realistic turntable with no pitch control, and I got a SLB 100 turntable, I believe, that was made by Technique, that was a straight arm. It was a straight arm turntable, and it was a belt driven turntable, and that had a pitch control on it. And that was the beginnings of my DJ setup back then. My dad gave me a realistic receiver combo amplifier and some realistic speakers, and there was my whole DJ setup. And how I pitched on the old turntable that didn't have a pitch control, I took a napkin and I shoved the napkin up under the platter of the realistic turntable, and that's how I was able to manipulate it to slow it down and to speed it up. So that was a very funny thing to do, and coincidentally, I mean, it worked out well. um and I end up getting parties, and my very very first party, I end up leaving, and I went to a school called Shiloh Academy, and I had a lot of friends there, and I had a friend named Paul Dixon at that time, and he got me involved with a young lady that wanted to have a birthday party, and that was my first big gig and my first bum. I mean, that's when I really dropped the ball. That's when everything kind of made me decide, oh my God, is this something that I want to do? Is this something that I need to run away from? Is this something that um, you know, is this something that I really want to pursue? What happened was I got there, I put my friend Jeff on. Jeff was not a super great DJ, but I mean, he played, and everybody was anxious for me to come and play. So when I finally got on, I was nervous because everybody had gathered around me to watch me and see how I was going to do this thing. And I freaked out. I got scared and I blew the set. The young lady, of course, got all upset. She was crying. And there was a couple of other guys there at the time that were very good, and they played, and they happened to have a setup, and they played, and I got comfortable and I wanted to go play because not and the girl was like, no, don't let him play, don't let him play. It was just bad. And then needless to say, Paul stopped speaking to me, and because he recommended me, and I guess I embarrassed him or whatever the case may be, and he was like, oh nah, we can't deal with you anymore, dude. So it hurt my feelings, but I mean, it was a lesson learned, how to choose your friends, how to choose your friends wisely, stuff like that. But it taught me a lot about fear. It taught me a lot about getting in front of an audience. It taught me, how to get courage and dig deep for it. I mean, because after that, even when I started playing, I would always think of reasons not to play or why not to get up there and play, because I was always afraid, like, oh man, what if they don't like me? It's kind of like a war share, of being in a war and being shell shocked or something. And certain things that would happen in your life would remind you of that traumatic experience, and you would just freak out. And every time I got ready to play it, I would always think about that crowd that got in front of me on my first time, and looked at me and with this great disappointment, and was almost booing me, to the point that it would cripple me to want to spin. But I continued on, and I pushed past that. I would just take a deep breath, and I would just say, all they can say is, hey, we don't like him, or no, and hey, you're talented in other things. You can go do other things. And as I kept telling myself that, I went through one party, then two parties, then three parties, then 4 events, 5 events. And even today, I've been spinning now for 30, I'm giving away my age, about 33 years. 33, 34 years, and I still get nervous today. Not as nervous as I used to, but I still get nervous. I don't get the handshake nervous like I used to, where I would get up there and the hand would be quivering, but I still get a little nervous because, the world and the music keeps changing. So you just never know how the crowd is going to react. Um, I got into music production in, I want to say, 1983, 84. I released my first record, with a guy named Rodney Baker, Rockin' House Records in Chicago, in 1985, called Homeboy. What did I use back then? I used an Alesis drum machine and MIDI recorder. It was like a little combo. Um, and I had an 808 drum machine and stuff like that I hadn't mastered, and a Linn drum that I hadn't quite mastered, and I kind of got comfortable with that Alesis drum. I created that drum beat. If you listen to the track today, which you can find on Discogs and stuff like that, or just Google Derek Smokin Jones Homeboy, you'll find it. The What you think is a bass line is not a bass line. It was actually two tom drums that I manipulated to sound like a bass, and it gave a bass sound. And then I worked with some very talented guys at the time that are awesome studio musicians, Marvin Sparks and another guy named Keith Henderson. And And the vocalist of that track, her name was Candace, and we put it together. I mean, what can I say? We put it together, and at that time, my pride was a little heavy. I had a real heavy pride, um, about my track, and um, Rodney Baker, the owner of the label, he came to me and he asked me, he said, "Hey, I think it would be hot if you did some remixes, on it." And I said, think about it, Um, and he said, "Well, Mike wants to do them," meaning at that time, Mike Dunn. And I was like, no, no, it's not that I didn't like Mike or I was jealous of Mike Dunn or anything like that. It was just that I wanted to do something. Mike was already successful in doing the things that he was doing, and I wanted to be able to stand on my own. I wanted to do some things on my own, you know, and pull myself up by my bootstraps, if you will. So that was my situation. Um, and needless to say, now I look back on it and I said, man, I should have let Mike do a remix on it. That would have been so awesome, but I just didn't think about it at the time. How I came up with the name Homeboy actually was when I was struggling trying to get in the clubs. My uncle Charles Jones, he owned a club on 75th Street called Chuck's Place at the time, and I would go in there and do little dusty jazz blues parties for him there and stuff like that. And um, I wanted to get in a club. I was going to Columbia College in Chicago for sound engineering and recording and radio. And uh, he talked George into allowing me to be a DJ at the Copper Box 2, which was the second version of because there was a first version called the Copper Box, and then there was the Copper Box 2, not like copper coins. It was kind of a play on the words, like a sexual thing, like cop her box, get it, and that was the name of the club, and that was owned by um, Chris and Willie. I can't think of their last names now. It's been so long and it's been so many years, but they were great guys. Chris got killed in an auto accident, and I think Willie was one of the trumpet players or the trombone players for Earth, Wind, and Fire at the time. But he was, also the club owner of the Copper Box. And George Harris was one of my mentors. George was one of the guys that taught me how to play for multi genres of music, which I think is real important as a DJ. I think as a DJ, you have to be well rounded in playing all types of music. So I was playing R&B, jazz, blues, what we call Chicago stepper music, hip hop. We had to play everything in those clubs, and it made me a well-rounded DJ, and it gave me an ear for a lot of different styles of music. And I think that's why a lot of the music that I produce today doesn't really fall in a chain of all it's all house or all I've got house, I've got R&B, I got techno, I got dubstep, I got acid tracks. Because my ear is very diverse. I like a lot of different music, and I put out an album just last year called Many Shades of Me, and I wanted to project in that album all my different tastes. But getting back on the point, George Harris would always call me homeboy. He said every time I would come over the booth, he said, "Hey, what's up, homeboy? How you doing?" And homeboy this, and I thought as a tribute to him, and to play off of that name, I would create a track, and hence came the track Homeboy. and that's how Homeboy came about. Was really because George Harris would call me Homeboy all the time, which was kind of funny. But anyway, I stayed with Rockin' House. I didn't do a second track or follow up with Rockin' House. I ended up signing with Larry Sherman in Chicago Track Records, which is a very well-known classic house music label in Chicago, the Star of Chicago. I believe it's owned now by Rachel Kane. His ex-wife, well, his first wife, is deceased. He got married to Rachel Kane, which was also a recording artist on his label at the time, and they, you know, are now divorced. But at any point, she owns it at this point. So, like, hey, how about that? But at the end of the day, I did my next track with him called "Take Me," and I did it with a guy named Kevin Turner. And Kevin Turner's girlfriend at the time, Kamala. I think her name was Kamala Davis. But that went really well. I mean, I can't express. I mean, let's talk about that track a little bit. Barbecue Bobby was one of our local college station DJs from WKKC Radio in Chicago, which you only had really two real stations in Chicago, in my opinion, that supported house music fully. Was one BMX and two WKKC, especially in the Black community. You had other ones that played, different stuff. I think it was more Euro takeoff stuff, but I mean, for the Black community, KKC and definitely BMX, WBMX were definitely the ones that I think solidified what house music is in Chicago. I mean, real talk. I mean, I'm just trying to keep some background noise here going for you guys because again, this is not one of those videos that's super put together, but this is just a one-on-one with us. If you guys got any questions, you can hit them up in the chat and I'll try and answer them for you. But anyway, that's kind of how all of this started for me. Kevin Turner was a good producer. He was also a great keyboard player. And I can remember working on the track and creating, the bottom for it, and Kevin and I collaborating with it. You wouldn't find that track under Derek Smokin Jones. You would actually find it under DK Productions, Derek and Kevin. That's where it came from. If you want to know the history of that track, and it's also can be found on Discogs and stuff like that. It was a rocky relationship with me and Kevin because one of the problems that occurred was when the track was done, Larry Sherman misspelled Kamala's name and had it like Kamia, Kamia, instead of Kamla, which would have been Kamla. And she was furious about that, and Larry wouldn't change it, and it put pressure on me and Kevin because his girlfriend was putting pressure on him. And then I had my very first radio interview with WKKC, and this was my first one, so I'm gonna admit it. I didn't know really what to say, and I tried to get Kevin to go because I really didn't know what to say. This was my first time even trying to deal with any of this stuff. So, what ended up happening was I didn't say enough of the right stuff, and Kevin got upset because I kept saying, that he was the keyboard player and he was this, and he's like, "Man, I was more than that. You should have said that." But at the time, this is my first interview. I'm scared to death. I'm all excited to be there, and I'm just saying, what came to mind. I wasn't a very rehearsed or very uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I wasn't in the set long enough to really know how to move and play the game and the things to say the right way and when to say them at the time is basically how I can best express it just to keep it real. And we fell out and we weren't friends anymore. But Edward Get Down Crosby was also on the radio station at the time, on another major radio station, not a college station. I believe he was with GCI at the time. And that was the first time I heard Take Me played on commercial radio. I was driving my car, with my ex-wife at the time, and that I was so used to playing it, on cassette in the car. Those of you don't know what cassette, it's those little plastic ribbon things that you see. It's a little plastic case with little ribbons in it that carry music. I know everybody don't know what a cassette is, but anyway, I would play it in the car so much, so I got used to it. So one day, my ex and I were driving, and the song came on, and I was surprised. I was like, "Oh my God!" I said, "Is that my song?" And we both looked at each other, and we started screaming and jumping up in the car, and we pulled over because we weren't sure if it was the cassette at the time or if it was actually the radio. But when we found out it was the radio, we went bananas. And that was a very exciting moment for me, in house music, especially in my creative stages. Um, then I reached a plateau where I was playing a lot, running around a lot, and the money, of course, and the gigs were great. And then it was like really great where you were carrying knots this big, and you know, and the groupies. I mean, it was some funny situations going into clubs and having a bunch of women and guys wanting to carry your records in and walk you to the DJ booth. It coincidentally put a lot of stress and strain on my ex-wife and I's relationship, where it was a situation where we had to, well, I had to choose between the music and her. Well, of course, at the time, I loved her very much, and I I picked her over the music, and I came out of house music for a while. I let the whole thing go, um, and it was very stressful. It was letting house music go for me at that time was one of the most painful, bitter, bitter, depressing times in my life. It hurt me really bad. It felt like a part of my life had got stripped away from me. And and I think that's also another thing that put quite a strain on our relationship, was the fact that I was bitter. And I mean, I was doing so many different things. I did security, I did investigations, I did policing, I did all of these things trying to fill that gap of music. And you know, nothing did it. Um, and I went this way for years. I mean, I didn't really revisit music, turntables, or production again. I dabbled in 2002 a little bit, doing some online shows for a friend, which was Derek Mathis of X and D One, X and D Nation, XandDRadio.com. And then I moved forward to doing nothing at all, bodyguarding and different stuff like that, construction. I was very successful in construction actually. And really, what got me into construction was I learned how to build recording studios and stuff from an old teacher of mine at Columbia College called Malcolm Chisholm. And I learned, and from just building those, I got into learning to build actual structures, houses, and remodeling and building stores from the ground up and made good money at it, but I still wasn't happy. And at this time, I'm on to my second marriage. You know, um, I did telecom work, all of these different things. Man, I was doing so many different jobs: telecom, cable, cellular, all of this stuff. I'm climbing towers, man. I'm doing all types of stuff out there trying to make ends meet and really trying to keep other people happy, you know, trying to keep food on the table for my wife and kids and trying to keep her happy so we can stay together. But the whole time I was miserable. I wasn't happy. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna find us another track. That's why y'all keep seeing me look out the corner of my eye because I be trying to look see what I can play for y'all that's not so hyper, and very mellow that would work with, my conversation with you guys right now. But I want to say, to everybody that is getting into um, this music industry, um, let's play drum major. Let's play drum major. Let's get that. And then I get back on my train of thought. Um, this morning, it's a little happier. All these songs, you can find them. Got a scratchy throat. All these songs you can find on TrackSource, Beatport, iTunes, wherever you want to go. But I want to tell everybody, man, you have to do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy, and whether it's making you a whole lot of money, if it's not making you nothing at all. I mean, if it makes you happy and it's positive and productive, I would say do it. If you got to hold a second job, fine. For me, I'm not that multitasking guy where I can be a fisherman and then go over here and be a plumber. I either got to be all in on a fisherman, I got to be all in as a plumber. But coincidentally, my second wife and I got divorced, and that was not just music. It was a whole lot of other things involved with that just, crashed and burned. But I know a lot of it was I was not happy in my spirit. I remember having a conversation with a friend one day, and we were laughing and talking. And they said, well, Derek, who are you? Who are you? And I honestly couldn't answer the question. I didn't know who I was. And all I can remember was dropping the phone and saying, oh my God, I've lost my identity trying to make other people happy. I lost my identity. I honestly couldn't come up with anything to say who I was as a person, and that scared me. That scared the hell out of me, man. I I learned a lot, being in this industry. Incidentally, backtracking a little bit, backpedaling a little bit. Farley Funk and Keith of the Hot Mix Five, which is now Farley Jack Master Funk, the King of House, self-proclaimed, is the first person that taught me how to really put a record on beat, how to pitch a song up, how to play it, he came to my home and it was just like God walked into my house. It was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe Farley's in my house. He's in my house, and I looked up to him, very much. I mean, we still are cool today and chat and talk. I mean, we're both the same sign. We're both Aquarians, and He's idealistic, I'm idealistic. He's heavy on his hustle, I'm heavy on my hustle. So I mean, that's just how it goes. um but progressing forward, I didn't really get back into the music scene until I want to say 2010 or 2011. Um, and that's when I ran into an old friend that used to run around chasing me around Track Records, which was, legendary Gene Hunt, a very good DJ now. And actually now Gene has been inducted into the Hot Mix 5 in 2018. So he's the newest member of the Hot Mix 5. So congratulations, Gene. Um, but I went to a party, and I was dating a young lady at the time that was a waitress at a club called Pros that was in Country Club Hills, that was owned by a cousin of mine named Theron. And now Pros is something different now. He still owns it, but if you guys ever watched Bar Rescue, that's what happened. He actually got a chance to get on Bar Rescue, and they revamped the whole place, and now it's like this steakhouse, But anyway, so they were having this big event down there, and it was media there, and Farley was there, and my girlfriend at the time kept saying, "Hey, that guy that you showed me in the magazine is down here." And the magazine she's speaking of is Five Magazine. Five Magazine was one of the first house music publications in Chicago. Zarina Mariani was one of the partners in that. That created Five Magazine, and now it's online, so we don't have the hard copies. Actually, I have a hard copy of Five Magazine. Let me see if I can dig one out of this box for you. If I can reach it, I'm gonna try. Seeing if my efforts are gonna work. Hold on. Yes. And ironically, I picked the one up that has Zarina on it. So I want to make sure you guys are seeing this. So this is Five Magazine, and this was one of the few of her last prints, and this is Zarina right on here. And we got, inside you got Dennis Pierre, but this was a great idea. This was an awesome magazine. Um, that depict a lot of what was happening in Chicago, the latest parties, the DJs, and all that. But Farley was actually, and I do have it, it's just buried in there. Farley was actually on the cover of one of the magazines. And the young lady I was dating at the time started asking me why did I leave the music scene, and who were all the players. So we ended up going down memory lane, and I had one of the magazines in my car, and we ended up just talking about it. And as we talked about it, we would go from page to page, and I would tell her who the people are, who the players were, and who this person was to me or wasn't. And that's how she was able to recognize these people at this event they were having at my cousin's place. And from there, uh, she kept calling me. I was at home, and she kept saying, "Well, you need to come down here." And I said, "No." She said, "Well, that guy in the magazine, speaking of Farley, he's here." And I was like, "Okay, great. I'm staying home. Just call me when you're ready." And I think a lot of it, reason why I didn't want to come, is because I didn't feel like I fit in anymore. I wasn't in the scene anymore. I left it, and it was too damn painful to go back. It was too painful. It was way too painful. And I to see these guys and to talk to them would only remind me of me quitting, you know, me losing time where they stayed in there, and that was very painful. But eventually, what ended up happening was she, of course, told them that she knew me, and broke down the whole story. And they were like, "Oh my God, we haven't seen him in years. Tell him to come down," and all that. And she talked me into it and told me that she told him. And I was like, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" And lo and behold, I walk into pros and I get met with all of these cameras flashing in my face and people running up to me with pencils and pads saying, "Where have you been? where have you been? And why did you leave house music? And what happened?" And I didn't think anybody cared. I really didn't. I was really amazed. I was like, what? Where's this coming from? I didn't think anybody cared. So, I came in, and I spoke with everyone there and laughed and talked. And I'm seeing Gene Hunt sitting off in the corner, spinning on some, on the CDJs. I think those were the 800s, the first Pioneer CDJs that they came out with, the gray ones. I don't know if they were 800s, 850s, something like that. But at the end of the day, I had never seen them before. They look like flying saucers to me. I was like, "What is this? What are you playing music on?" Because remember, when I left the game, we were still spinning vinyl records, actual records. So, to come and see him playing on these flying saucer looking things, I was like, "What the hell is this?" And he showed me, and he showed me, yeah, you play CDs, you put the CDs in them. I said, wait a minute, they got house music on CDs now? So let me explain this to you guys. Let me really explain this to you guys, so you guys don't think I'm totally nuts. When I left the music industry, I also lost a great portion of the 90s. And what I mean by that is I totally stopped listening to the radio. I didn't anything that had anything to do with music, I wouldn't listen to it. I wouldn't watch it on TV. Music was non-existent to me. I didn't learn about Prince until 2000. That shows you, right? So I just, and so many of the popular bands and DJs that popped up in the 90s, I didn't know anything about them because I stayed away from the scene. I knew all the guys that I left in the 80s because I think I walked away realistically in 80, 89, 90, somewhere in there, and never looked back for a long time. And it was just too painful to listen to music on the radio and go to parties. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just was bitter. I just worked. And that's how I didn't know what the CDJs were. And I really, I had CDs, I had purchased CDs, but I didn't know at the time that you could load all of these MP3s on one disc and have all these different house tunes on them. And so Gene introduced me to that, and I was like, wow. And then that's what really kind of got me back into it. He said, "Hey man, you should start again. You should start again." And at the time, I didn't know that that was going to be a nightmare. So let's find another track, and then we'll get into what I mean by that what's the word I'm looking for? This is called Rainmaker if you hear it in the background. But the nightmare was I didn't know that I was going to meet a lot of opposition from my peers. I didn't know how competitive house music and the industry had become. It was very competitive, man. And when I left it, I mean, there was a silent kind of competition that you had with each other, but it was always a camaraderie. It was always a love. It was always some kind of bonding, you know, where it's that thing where you can agree to disagree, but you still brothers, you still friends, you still cool. Everybody that you came up with or grew up with is still tight with you. Now it was a situation when I got in it in 2010 or 11 where it was like I became an immediate threat, And the people that I once embraced and once embraced me didn't really embrace me the same. We were cool. We would speak. We would talk, but it was always a thing where like, I'm gonna look at this dude out the corner of my eye because I can't let him catch up with me. I can't let him get what I got. I can't, It was like, man, it was like kill or be killed, and that was another traumatic thing to me because I didn't know how to handle that when I left a thing where it was kind of peaceful and everything was cool, and then in the Chicago scene, house music had became very cliquish, and divided, where you had guys that listened to the old BMX type stuff and they deemed that as more the Latin side of the house music. And then you had the disco lovers, then you had the commercial house lovers, and then you had people that followed this DJ or that DJ and didn't. And if you followed that DJ, they didn't like you because you only like this DJ, and and if you weren't a part of this crew or that group, I mean, I couldn't believe what happened to house music. Um, it became very political and controversial. And this is real talk. This is from somebody who's living it and still living it today. It's a beautiful music. It's the whole culture behind it is beautiful. The original culture of house music in Chicago, we're dying off. Everybody's getting older and got other responsibilities and mortgages, kids in school, debt. All of these things. Health issues. But the culture that was created from house music was amazing. It was like a modern day Woodstock, if you will, love and I mean, I guess you can call it a little free love. There's a lot of freaky stuff going on in the clubs back in the day. People, having sex on speakers and on the floors and in dark corners and people getting high off of weed. Yeah, people were smoking weed and you know, popping pills and acid and using heroin. I mean, they had, poppers and all of these things going on in the clubs, man, and it was a mixed scene of gay and straight. That was just the culture, but everybody got along. Everybody got along. Um, and today I think that's missing a little bit, people say no, but realistically, yes. When you have so many sects and everybody feels, what I mean by sex sections and groups, when you become that divided, it becomes a problem. Um, and then you have people like me that have been trying to unify house music, over years and years, trying to get everybody to come back together, and it's just not that kind of atmosphere. And then with the emergence of techno and EDM, more so EDM than techno, it really got ballistic because then it went from, the real guys that played on turntables and were really beat matching and playing. The EDM DJ became the enemy of the original created DJs, the guys who really carry records, grind, and played on turntables. And they were like, these guys are button pushers. All they do is mesh up and hit this button because the emergence of technology was coming in now. Now we got controllers and they were coming out with CDJ 1000s and all of these different things that made it real easy. And now you got Serato. Before you have Serato, you have Virtual DJ. Then here comes Tractor and all these different programs coming in. And guys are like, what is this? This is all cheat stuff. You're not a real DJ if you use this stuff. You're just not real. It's all bullshit. This is not genuine house music. This is not how it's supposed to be played. And why, what's going on with this EDM mess? That's not real house music, and they're making millions of dollars off of biting off our music, and this is a fucking shame, So I mean, really, that's really what it's about, and it's still about today a little bit. And then I guess to the point, the older guys got to the point where if you can't beat them, join them. So a lot more guys started to grind harder and work harder to be touring DJs and show DJs and stuff like that. And some of these guys that like Dead Mall and David Guetta and all these type of guys, they idolized a lot of the older school house DJs in Chicago, and they kind of help bridge the gap a little bit just on a mutual respect level, but it's still never going to be the same. The music and the technology has changed so much to you have the kids now, the millennials that like the newer style of music and the shows and the lights and then the cannons and the confetti and the whole thing, and the whole show aspect of it, and the music is just coincidental to the experience. And you have your what I would call your straight and narrow DJs that are very surgical in how they play. It's about playing the right tracks. It's about blending at the right time, exiting at the right time, beat matching, whatever term you want to use. And those guys take that very seriously, and I was one of those guys who also took it very seriously, and also was a little bit rebellious of the EDM emergence at that time, until I learned to appreciate the sound and the music. And I had a chance to talk with some of these guys that created this sound, and we learn from each other, and dialogue. That's the other thing. Dialogue is very important, um, and things that you want to know as an up and coming DJ in the game is, one, be well rounded, have a good ear, know how to read your audience. A lot of guys don't know how to read their audience and what to play and when to play it. Um, don't play for yourself. If you hire, you're playing for them. Don't be a jukebox. I can't stand people to come up in the booth and say, "Hey, do you have this or do you have that? Or can you play this? Can you play that?" That could be a pain in the butt. You don't have to be a jukebox, but I would suggest that you do hone in on your skills. And what I mean by that is every day, or at least 2 or 3 times a week, practice, 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 and practice. They consider DJs musicians now because of how we can manipulate sounds and beats and things of that nature. And those decks, that mixer, those controllers, those buttons are instruments. And just like any instrument, you have to continue to play it and practice it to get well at it, to understand it, to get comfortable with it. So it's very important that you do that. Um, I put a book out. Well, actually, it was a book by accident. I did it with my sister-in-law because I felt there was not enough stuff out there to archive Chicago house music. And what I did was I had actually created I should say, a personal photo book um, for myself. And she liked it so much, she convinced me to publish it. It was just going to be my own online, if you will, or my own computer-based photo book of memories. And it's called, here, I'll just show it to you. I'm gonna scoot around, you guys. I don't know if I got one like readily available laying around. Yes, I do. Hold on. And you guys got to forgive my laugh right now. This is my private little studio. But this is it. This is it right here. Can you guys see that? My House. That's what the book is called. My House. Can you get a good look at that? Okay, this book I created, Memories of the Chicago House Music Culture. Tells a little bit about me here on the back. That's me when I was a few pounds lighter. And hey, I'm dieting now, I'm working out, and I'm drinking milk. So But seriously, I lost about 70 pounds already, and trying to get myself back in shape, to keep up with the millennials, to keep playing the parties, and keep traveling and doing the gigs. But in this is a just a pictorial of people that I love and respect. And I am currently doing a part two of the book, and it has a lot of different DJs in it, and producers, and all the types of gear that we used back then up to present. Um, the food we ate, the clothes we wore. It's just a walk down memory lane, and I would encourage you to get it. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it if you're interested in just the Chicago culture. Get volume one. I'm working on volume two, but definitely get it. Um, it's a cool thing, and it's just a pictorial, and it breaks down who the guys are, where they were at the time, their DJ names, the records they made, the events they played at, stuff like that. So people will have a good understanding of who it was. And one of the other things that influenced me to do it was I was watching a video on YouTube, and these guys were going around doing random interviews at different clubs, asking young kids that were frequenting these clubs who a certain DJ was, like who's Frankie Knuckles, or who's Ron Hardy, or who was, this guy or that guy. And some kids knew, and a lot of them didn't know. But some of them knew the music, and but didn't know who made the music. They had no clue who made the music. And they would name either the wrong DJ or the wrong producer for a particular song because they didn't know actually who made it. They just know that they might have heard this particular DJ play it. And that broke my heart. And it also infuriated me a little bit because I was like, man, this is bullshit. I mean, these guys should be known for their accomplishments and the things that they brought to the table in the creation of this house music that is now dance music, from dance music, which house music has always been electronic dance music, which is EDM. A lot of, if you talk to a lot of old school house DJs, they'll tell you, "Oh, we're not EDM." Yeah, but it was classified as electronic dance music in the early '80s, bro. So get over it. It eating. When the new guys started coming out with newer beats, and the whole drum build up thing, and all of that, they had no other reason but to call it electronic dance music, which it was. And they just, and hence came EDM. Um, but it has always been EDM. The old house music is still EDM. It was still done electronically. Nowadays, I think a lot more of us are going into analog and digital sounds, because the analog is a lot more warmer sound than a digital sound. A digital sound is very direct and very, on point, if you will, whereas analog is a little more warmer and drifty. Um, so I think combining the two actually makes a good marriage of doing songs and tracks nowadays for you guys that are interested in stuff like that. I know I'm jumping around a bit, but I'm not trying to have a whole part two of this video. So I'm trying to, jump around and answer some things for you. But um, that's one of the things that you would definitely want to check out, is to try comboing your music and layering your music. I will be doing videos. This is the start of me doing a lot of videos um, about music, but I wanted to get you guys to understand who I am and where I came from and how I got in the game, the places I've been and the things I've done. And I'm gonna start taking you to places that I go and I play at, and or tour at, or whatever the case may be. I will start taking you in the studio with me and letting you guys watch me put together music and stuff like that. But I will be doing a video soon on layering music and stacking and the type of DAWs I use. Now, I'm a Presonus guy. I love Presonus. I have Presonus, I have Ableton, I have Fruity Loops, I have a lot of these different programs, but I am a Presonus lover. I love Presonus. I like Ableton. I like Akai, Professional, which kind of to me is a bite off of Ableton. They're very similar to me. Um, let's find us a new song before I continue. Um, let's play something like that. This is called Blue. But either way, I don't know if you guys can hear Blue. I'll turn up. Yeah, get some bananas on it. But that's Blue. Yeah, it's one of those party club songs for sure. But anyway, let me turn this down a little bit. You can find that too, Traxsource, Beatport, iTunes. But one of the things that I want you guys to understand, layering music makes it sound fuller, gives it a bigger body. I started my own record label with a guy named Byron Woodard, probably about, I want to say it might have been 2013, 2012, somewhere in there. And we end up parting ways over, bad business deals and stuff like that. I still respect him. He's a talented guy and stuff like that. And I just continued on with the label on my own, which is PMG1, Power Mix Group. So, I mean, it was one of those things that, I've just loved and continue to do. I put out mostly my music. I have put out other people's music on it. I'm currently signing some other people right now to put their tunes out on it. I've done joint projects with some other labels at this time now where we're joining together, putting some things together, which is going to be a surprise. It's going to be another video when I bust out the EP, so you guys got to stay with me. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you guys know what's going on. Also, I want to let you guys know that my channel is not always going to be strictly music because I have other interests. I'm going to start other channels where, people don't know I love engines. I love cars. I mean, I love cars and engines, and I like rebuilding them and working on them. So, yeah, you'll see videos with me doing that, especially if you're into import cars and stuff like that. I'm heavy into Beamers and Mercedes and, Jaguars, Lamborghini. I love working on that stuff. So, those are some other things. And I like to cook. Now that I'm into this health thing, I'm getting into a situation where, I'm learning to be vegan or, just eating all natural foods now and trying to pull away from a lot of the meats and processed foods and stuff like that. So you might even find me speaking to you about vitamins and health things and stuff like that. I'm probably going to separate those channels so it doesn't get too confusing. But I will be talking about music, tracks, gear, equipment, what's hot, what's not. I'll be doing reviews on certain softwares and gears and equipment that people send me. So yeah, we're gonna have a ball, but I want to let you guys know there are many shades to me. It's not just music. And I know in the YouTube world, they kind of want you to stay focused on this or stay focused on that in order to draw your audience. And in some ways I am by separating the channels, but at the same time, I'm still a person that has multiple likes and multiple things that I like to do. I like camping. I like the survivalist stuff. I like all of these types of things. So these are all the things that make up Derek Smokin Jones. How did I get that name? I stole the name actually from Scott Smokin Seals. I thought, from the Hot Mix 5 in Chicago, I thought Scott Seals sounded so cool with that name, Scott Smokin Seals. I became Derek Smokin Jones. And it was Smoking for a long time. And a lot of my discographies, that's how it's going to show up. And then they finally, I think just this year, or maybe last year, figured out that Derek Smokin, Smokin, Derek Smokin Jones is the same as Derek Smokin Jones. He's the same guy. And now I'm Smokin Inc. So go figure. So now you got Derek Smokin Jones, you got Derek Smokin Jones, now you got Smokin Inc. And that's also my website. So if you guys want to follow me on the website, just go www.smokininc.com, SMOKININC.com. So all together, Derek, www dot Derek Smokin. Listen to me, I'm so tired. www.smokininc.com. So those are some ways to find me. And it has links to my music, up and coming shows, past shows. It hasn't been updated with the new shows that we're doing for next year. I also have a non-for-profit company called the Music Alliance Festival, and that's where we play all types of music. I mean, we have a festival every year in Chicago, and we're going to start traveling with the festival soon. And the Music Alliance Festival, I'm partnered with Steve Poindexter, Fred Riley from the Reactor, my current wife, and a few other people on the board, man. And we're getting ready to work together. To continue to bring you guys great music of all times, dubstep, trap, country, rock, pop. It's just all about the music and the experience. So the Music Alliance Festival is now my new venture, to bridge the gap between young and old and all types of music. We do it every year. Uh, this past year, we got rained out really bad. We did it in late July, and I swear the rain gods had it in for us. I mean, it poured rain like buckets for the whole 3 days of the festival. We caught a little bit of a break on Sunday, but it was not enough to recoup all the damages, of not having people like we wanted to, because so many people stayed in, so many people got flooded out. It was ridiculous in 2018 for the festival, but 2019 is coming, and we will be doing one again in Riverdale, Illinois, in Chicago. We'll be doing a special event um, for the Roseland community in Chicago, and we'll be doing one in 2019. On in the lakefront, in the Union Park area on the north side. And we'll also be doing some events in Dalton, Illinois. So and now they're talking about bringing the event to Gary, Indiana, and a few other places. So we're going to be moving around. There's also special talk of taking it overseas and stuff of that nature. I got approached about it a couple of times. So these are all the different things, man, that is going on. If you guys got any questions, just comment below. I'll try and answer them the best that I can. Um, I don't know what else to say, but those are the main basic things about Derek Smokin Jones. Again, you can find my music on YouTube, of course, some of my videos, because the distributor I'm with is putting my music out on YouTube. I'm getting ready to get a production company together where we can start bringing you guys music videos again. So we're in the process of working on that. I have a lot of new tracks out right now. You've heard some of them. Magnificent, I just did with a guy named Gemini Porter. He's the vocalist on that track. Um, and I just put, a soft remix to it, to bring it up to date a little bit. Um, Blue you just heard is, a real clubby track. Rainmaker is another one. Call on Me is a chill song, left field, again, if you guys are DJs, you know about Track Source, Beatport, Spotify, or Spotify, whatever, however you guys want to say it. Um, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon. Um, these are, I mean, music is everywhere, and I'm everywhere with it. What do you call it? Pandora. So, it's all over the place. I'm all over the place, man. And I'm grateful to God that I've had that opportunity. I mean, the digital world has made it possible to get your music all over the place. We are in the process of pressing up vinyl and doing vinyl EPs for you vinyl purists and people who love vinyl. I'm still a vinyl lover. Um, and I'm hoping vinyl does make a big comeback. I mean, they're talking about bringing back cassette tapes, so I can't see why vinyl wouldn't be played up in that game for sure. I don't think vinyl has ever left because there's still people that like to hear that needle on the record. It's just something about that crackle pop that just, well, anyway, that analog sound. But those are the things in the projects that I have coming up and the music that I have out already. Um, I got back into producing my own music in about 2014, you know, and I've been doing it ever since. I'm not big on playing local clubs or anything like that. And one in Chicago, if you guys don't know, they're shutting down so many of them, man. It's like ridiculous. And I get mad at the whole house music community anyway because not enough of us stand up and protest and fight about keeping our clubs open. Any little incident that happens, if somebody got hurt up the street or shot or somebody got their purse snatched, immediately they want to blame it on the club and shut the club down. But if you walk into a Walgreens or a Jewel and somebody snatches your purse or you get hurt in the parking lot, they don't shut the Jewel down, but they shut down the club. So these are the things that's happening, and then of course we're dealing with a racial divide here in Chicago too, whether they want to admit it or not. Illinois is a very high racist state, and it's very racially divided. Where you have black, white, Latin, everybody's got their own place, and then you have that group of people where it doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, everybody's cool with everybody, and I think that's kind of globally in most cases, but I mean, it's really rough here in Chicago when it comes down to that. People may agree, they may disagree, but I'm telling you what I live every day. I'm telling you what I see every day. From my perspective, it's still a great city to visit. It is Chicago has a beautiful skyline. It does have some beautiful people here. And one thing about it, some of the best damn DJs on the planet, hands down, come out of Chicago. I mean, if there's a Sparta for DJs, Chicago is Sparta for DJs. It is the mecca for some very talented DJs and producers, man. It's just that now we're in a world where we're so flooded with hundreds of thousands of songs and thousands of DJs and everybody trying to make a name for themselves, man, till you just get lost in the mix and you have to do certain things that help you to stand out from the rest. And I think that's why music and DJing and production has gotten very gimmicky now, and things of that nature because you're trying to think of things that people can remember you by, and create certain experiences that people won't forget. So they'll keep coming back, supporting you and supporting your music. So, I mean, hint, that's another note you need to take for yourself. Think of ways that you stand out. Think of ways that are going to make you more creative and things of that nature. That will definitely help you in your career. Okay, guys, this is it for my part one of this. Hope you found this informational. I hope you guys like me, love me. I've been doing this a long time. I love Chicago. I love the Chicago house music sound. I love all types of music. Of course, house and dance music, techno, EDM, trap, hip house, all of those things are my passion. But I do ballads and R&B stuff. And hey, if you guys need help with music, let me know. You want to partner up on some projects, hit me up on YouTube. Give me a thumbs up, give me the like, subscribe, man, and hit me up in the inbox and say, hey, bro, let's hook up, let's do something. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully, knowing a little bit about me, you'll support me more and come out and see me more. Support the music more, things of that nature. Um, it's been a long time and it's been a hard road doing what I do. The pain of it has been great. The success of it has been great, and everything in between. Those gray areas have also been great. I've learned a lot. I can teach a lot, um, and I'm here for you. So peace, love, and soul, as Don Cornelia says. And I hope you guys subscribe to me again. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you.